All right, you cool cats and kittens. So we're back here again. And so for this one, we're going to talk more about finding probabilities. So we kind of introduced last time about like why it's important, why we have these things to begin with. But so let's start like a little bit. But what we first got to do. So before we like end up doing anything, before we actually get into the nuts and bolts of anything, right? We have a sample space. And this is going to be like the set of all possible outcomes. So for example, right, let's take, like a die. So if we roll a die, we know you can get a 1, a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? If we take something like, let's say that you are released from prison. Released from prison. And you're looking at odds going back. So you either go back to prison or don't go to prison. So that's like another way to do it. If we look at the example that I have in the notes, right, we have baseball membership, baseball fan in SoCal. You're either going to be a San Diego Padres fan, you're going to be an Anaheim Angels fan, or an LA Dodgers fan. So for each of these, right, what I've done is that I've taken a look at like all the possible outcomes there and then figured out like that they are, right? So these are for like these purposes, right? It's like all possible outcomes, right? Fun fact, real quick before we move on. So if you guys have ever looked at the San Diego logo, so it's like, it's got like, it's like, it's like S, which is, I made that look like a 5. And then there is the D, like right there. If you guys notice, like here's the S, here's the D, and then right here is the P. Look it up. Go look up the logo. Go look up, prove me that I'm wrong. The Padres logo. So the first thing that we're usually interested in doing, though, is, what is the probability of an outcome? Just for mathematical, or just for simplicity. So how do we figure out the probability of something happening? So we usually look at the number of outcomes in event A. So if there's like 1, right? So we think about the dice roll. So what's like the likelihood of a 6 being drawn out of 6 possible outcomes? We would say that there is a 1 out of 6 chance of rolling a 6. If we look back at the prison one, right? And let's say we were interested in people who not go back, so people who stay in the community. We would say that's a 1 outcome out of, in the way that we framed it, there are 2 possible outcomes. So there is 1 out of 2 probability of not going back. And if we look at our last example, right, what is the probability of being an Angels fan? That's one outcome out of 3 baseball fanhoods. So that's kind of like the quick and dirty way that we go about in figuring this out, right? So pretty easy stuff, basic like fractions, right? No big deal. So sometimes, right, we're not only interested in that, but we may possibly be interested in the complements. So likelihood of not happening. So we usually look at this as AC, and this is equal to the 1 minus the probability of some outcome occurring. So if we look at our dice roll example, so we were looking at a 6, right? So AC, probably the complement of that, is equal to 5 out of 6, right? Because there are 5 different things that could happen. Different rolls and numbers that can get called. If there is, for the prison example, there's one other outcome other than not going to prison, and so this equals 1 out of 2 for the complement. And for our last one, right, we would say for the complement of the baseball teams, so what is the complement of baseball fanhood? We would say there is a 2 in 3 chance of not being an Angel fan. All right, so seems pretty easy, seems pretty quick and awesome. So, all right, so we'll move on to the next thing, right? So if we know that those are complements, right, and we go and figure that out, right, sometimes we're looking at things that are no common outcomes, so they're not shared outcomes. And so these events are going to be disjoint, right? And so they're also entitled mutually exclusive. So what this means is, right, is that if we roll a 6, we can't get any other number. If we go to prison, we can't not go to prison. And for our baseball one, if we're an Angel fan, we can't be Padres or Dodger fans. So that's a simple way of looking at that. So we'll go ahead and pause this right here, and then I'll see you guys in the next one.